what I want to do here first, we are going to get into interval shapes and then some other things, but first I want to finish up on what I did in the last video. I didn't quite finish. We were talking about the 3 and 4 string patterns alternating in the positions, okay? And we had the 4 string, this is the Dorian pattern, the 3 string, backwards, 4 string backwards, and then part of a 3 string going backwards. Okay, and that gives you every single note that was in the position before you even knew how to do the 2 patterns. Okay, then we move up here, we have a 3 string and then a 4 string, part of a 3 string, goes into the 4, and part of a 3. And you do it all backwards. 4 string back, 3 string backwards. Conveniently ends on a root. Alright, we go to the next position, which has the A's here. So I'm going to start where I can finish the pattern. It makes it a little bit easier. So this is a 3 string pattern. It immediately goes to the 4 string, which I can't finish. 3 string backwards. And what's left over here is the 4 string pattern going backwards, which I cannot finish. So 3 string in the middle and a 4 string on either side. That's what you want to practice until you see that clearly. Okay, when I come up here, I'm going to start here because I can finish this octave. So it's going to be a 4 string with part of a 3 string on this side and part of a 3 string on this side. But I'm going to start here going forwards. So 4 string pattern. Right into a 3 string pattern. Can't finish it. 4 string backwards, and a 3 string pattern backwards. Now those aren't normally the fingers you would use when you play this position, but it helps you to see the pattern better. So I would recommend use the actual finger patterns. So every time you'll see the entire modal position materialize when you go through these and do them completely. All right, and the last one, I've got a 4 string pattern happening here. Sorry, doing the wrong one. I've got a 3 string pattern happening between these 2 A roots. Okay, and then a 4 string on this side of it that I can't finish, and a 4 string on this side that I can't finish. So 3 string pattern here, into an incomplete 4 string, 3 string backwards, and a 4 string backwards that I can't finish. So, proof that these 5 positions that you already knew are in reality, when you want to look at the Dorian scale in more depth, these 3 and 4 string patterns going forwards and backwards, they alternate in each position, they always change from one to the other one, okay? So that's really your goal right now, is to make sure you see that in 5 positions like I said before. And if it takes you, 2 weeks, then it takes you 2 weeks, but get that so you can visualize it. It pays off later, trust me. Okay, so now into the new stuff we're going to talk about, which is interval shapes. We're going to look at this. You'll start to see how we're using these 3 and 4 string patterns more and more as we go right now, because we're going to start looking at interval shapes in relation to the 3 and the 4 string patterns. So, interval shape. An interval shape is just a shape that is created on the guitar when you look at 2 notes at a time. Now, we're always going to be looking at a root, and then whatever other interval we're looking for is going to create a shape. Each different interval creates a different shape on the neck of the guitar. Some intervals you're going to find, even though it might be the same interval, you might have to learn 2 ways or 2 different shapes of seeing that interval, but it never gets any more complicated than that. So again, this is a step that if you're not familiar with it, you want to put a little bit of time into, because it pays off. Alright, so I'm going to start in the 3 string pattern, and this will be relatively simple. We're going to look at what an interval of a flatted third looks like within this Dorian scale. So 1 is here, flatted third is there. Pretty simple. So from your root, your flat 3 is up 3 frets. 1, 2, 3. So you would just play fingers 1 and 4. Now, as silly as this seems, I want you to go through every single A note on your guitar and play fingers 1 and 4, which is going to give you intervals 1 and flat 3. So I'll start here, 1, flat 3. I'll start here on this A. 1, flat 3. So I'm just memorizing what that distance looks like. From this A, 1, flat 3. 1, flat 3. 1, flat 3. The rest up here are repeats. So that's one way you can find your flatted third. Okay, we're going to stay in this 3-string pattern, and we're going to look at a fifth. So we're just dealing with tone center intervals right now. Fifths, very common on the guitar. A lot of tunes played like that. So a fifth looks like that. It's on the following string from the root, but it's up 2 frets higher. So it's going to look like that every time, except for when you have to deal with the second string. So if I start on this A here, my fifth is not going to be here. I have to move it up a fret. All right, so there's always that second string tuning thing to deal with, no matter what you're playing. Okay, so fifth. From this A, I cannot play a fifth, so I'll just skip that. From this A, my fifth. From this A, my fifth. From this A. Okay. Other than that, it's repeats. So you would want to memorize that. Play it as many times as you need to. Shouldn't take too long. Okay, so we've got 1 in flat 3 and 1 in 5. Flat 7 is the next interval in the tone center. And this skips a string from your root, but it stays on the same fret until we get into the tuning issue. But that's what your flat 7 looks like. All right, so now I'm going to go over here. Well, guess what? That tuning thing carries over to the first string, so my flat 7 is not going to be here. I have to move it up. All right, so I'm going to practice all of my flatted 7s. I cannot get a flatted 7 from this one, so now I'm over here on this A. Second string again. Okay. I'm going to go up to this. I can't get a flatted 7. I go up to this A and get my flat 7 standard. No tuning adjustment. The rest of these would be repeats. So you practice all your flat 7s. All right, just do them everywhere they are. Octave, you already know your octaves because you know your root positions. So that's really not something that needs to be practiced. Here's what we're going to do now. We're going to go to the 4-string pattern and look at the same intervals. A moment ago in the 3-string pattern, our flatted third was found, and it looked like that, right? Well, now you're going to find this same note. When you play things on the guitar, there are 2 areas to look at. If you want to play something, you can, from your root, you can either look up the neck or you can look down the neck to find the same thing. So this 3-string pattern had us looking up the neck to find the flatted third. When we go to this 4-string pattern to find our flatted third, which is here, that looks like this. So let's listen. Flat third here, and in the 4-string pattern, same sound. So 2 ways to locate your flatted third. So in the 4-string pattern, it's always going to look like this. So it's on the adjacent string from your root, but down 2 frets. Okay, here's my A, down 2 frets, but I have a tuning adjustment here, so my flatted third will be here. Okay, I go here, standard, no tuning adjustment. I go here. If I go here. And the rest of these will be repeats. Okay. In the 3-string pattern, we had our 5th look like this. Well, when you do the 5th in the 4-string pattern, it looks like this. So from my root, I've skipped a string and gone down 3 frets. Okay, now turns out I can get this down here, go down 3 frets, but again a tuning adjustment would bring me up to the open string. So that is there. Okay, A, down 3 frets, but tuning adjustment. Okay, my next A, I can't do it, don't have enough strings. My next A over here, right where it's supposed to be. Okay, and then everything else is a repeat. So practice all the repeats too. The flatted 7 is going to look exactly the same in the 4 string as it did in the 3 string, right? It was straight across from your root, skipping a string. When I play, it's the same, so you don't need to learn a new shape for the flatted 7. All right, practice each of those individually so you really start to get a handle on what those interval shapes look like. That's important. Next thing I'm going to do is show you in the book the positions, the full scale for Dorian with the tone center intervals shaded. Because the next thing you're going to do is play through each position playing all of the tone center intervals that are in that position. And you just practice it up and down like a scale. Trust me, there's a reason for this. You'll be glad you did it. All right? Freeze that, whatever you got to do, or work them out yourself, but there it is. So when I do all of my tone center intervals, now it turns out some of these come below a root. In other words, if this is my A root, I do have a flatted 7 that I could find down here. So every once in a while you'll run into something that's below a root that you didn't see when you did those exercises. But if I play all of my tone center intervals in this position down here, I get flat 7, 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7, 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7, 1. All right, and you would practice that up and down until it's really comfortable. This has everything to do with how well your soloing is going to sound once we get to the next step. Trust me, it's worth it. Okay, if I go up to this position, 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7, 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7, 1, flat 3. Okay, so you learn that one. If I come up here, it's always easiest to start on a root. 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7, 1, flat 3, backwards. So when you come backwards on this, you got 1, flat 7, 5, flat 3. Okay, if I come up here and play them all, again, I'll start on a root. So I've got a root, a flat 7, and a 5th that I can find coming backwards here. A root, a flat 7, and a 5th. Last one. Here's my A. I'll do that one more time. All right, so now that's nothing more than an exercise. Put some time into that. The more comfortable and confident you are playing these tone centers, the better your soloing is going to sound. And we're pretty close to getting to the soloing stuff. Pause the video here, get those positions together, get your interval shapes together, come back to this video, and I'm going to show you the next thing to do. You're going to get a tape of A minor again, and again, a nice slow backing track. I'm not going to put a backing track on right now. You get that going, and I want you to practice soloing on nothing but those tone center intervals. Now, tonally, it's not going to give you that much to work with. It's going to be hard to make it sound like anything interesting, but that's exactly the point. You're going to be drilling the sound of this tone center into your head because what you're soloing over is a tone center. Tone center intervals in a scale are always the strongest sounding intervals in the scale because they are the chord that you're soloing over. All right, so if you're comfortable soloing with that, and then we go to our next step, you're gonna hear some things start to materialize that might surprise you. So what I want you to practice is get the tape going and then tone center intervals only. And just practice up and down the neck until you're pretty comfortable doing that, and then we'll get to our next thing, okay?